Hi kids, it's Lou here. I'm just about to repaint this 23-foot V-bottom skiff that I built here quite some time ago. I've still got it in my possession after quite a while, and the paint job on it held up really, really nicely. And but we decided that we could actually do a better job painting it, and we'd wanted to get a nice base of this of finished paint on the boat because the finished paint sands so nicely it defies imagination. You know, when I was a kid, almost every boat got painted every year or every other year because all the paint was basically oil-based paint and would go a little flat over the course of time. So, somebody that really was proud of their boat wanted it to shine, and that's what it took, a nice new coat of paint. So, we're painting it with polyurethane paint from Total Boat, and it's easy enough to work with. We're going to end up putting a couple coats on it. But today, what I wanted to show you was how easily it sands and what we did to prep it up for this paint job that we're doing. One of the things that I really like about this paint that I'm using is that once it's really, really dry and it's been on there for quite a while, it sands so nicely. It's incredible. I think that, if the boat was painted last fall or last summer or whatever, and it sat for the winter and was on there drying for quite some time, it sands so much easier. It's just unbelievable. Really, really nicely. So, it has to be sanded in between coats, and that's no problem, but you don't really want to use the first coat of your two coats as a fairing. You can use the second coat as a fairing. You do that in the spring because it sands so well. You can see that I've sanded right through into the primer in places like that, but the paint will cover that. There's no need to prime it or reprime it because, it just is an effort that just does not have to be. The boat's already been primed, it's already been finished painted, and we're using this finished paint as like a fairing actually. It sands so nicely that you can get all the orange peel, anything that's problems with this paint job, the sander is going to take care of. Now, I want to show you what I'm up to here. This is my sander that I put in this little bucket here, and I've done it because I wanted to make sure that I don't make a cloud when I'm sanding. I don't want to breathe anything. I'm not too much into respirators and all that kind of stuff. So, this is something I really invented myself, and it is truly a dust-free sander right here. I'm going to sand some with it and show you how well it works. So let's turn it on and go. Like that. Now, that's pretty quick. The idea here is it gives a bit of a texture to it. The paint has a little texture to it, and this thing takes it right out. It basically sands it in a rotary fashion so that when I go to hand sand it, it sands even easier than it would if I hadn't sanded with this previous. I've sanded the entire boat, this whole boat, both sides, with one used screen pad. That's how well it sands. But I'm not done yet because what I want to do is make sure that I take time to look at it so that everything I sand now by hand, I'm looking at because I want to make sure that I can see it in different angles and see if there's any orange peel or any imperfections or anything like that that I want to get out. But look at the dust coming off that sandpaper. That's how nicely that dust sands. Very, very easily. If anybody knew years ago that painting and sanding would be this easy, they wouldn't send their boat out for a professional paint job. I'm not a professional painter, and I can guarantee you that. But they can still do a good job, and anybody can if they do things properly and they have some idea of what they're trying to get done, and use the right product. One thing I'm going to do right here now is I'm going to sand the waterline itself down onto the red. I'm not too worried about spreading some of that red pigment up onto the white paint job. I'm more worried about making sure that that waterline doesn't have all that chipping, like from when you peel the tape off from the last paint job, because it makes the waterline just keep getting worse and worse. We want it to get better and better, so we're going to go along that waterline, sand off that tape edge, like that. Now look, the paper does not clog. You know, this paint does not clog your sandpaper. I could literally sand this whole boat by hand with one sheet of paper. You know, it saves you quite a bit of money because you can go through some sandpaper, believe me. You get most all of that texture out. And then it starts to look like it's got a texture, but basically that was the texture that was left in the primer. So I'm sanding right through the finished paint, right down till I see the primer start to appear. What I'm using here is 220 grit sandpaper. I've got it wrapped around like a school chalkboard eraser, and it's a pretty nice little piece of equipment here. This thing really does a nice job sanding. It's soft enough so it lays down nice and flat. It's the right size for your hand, just about everything. This paint makes prepping actually fun because it's very easy to accomplish. I don't think there's anything more frustrating than sanding a boat like this and having the paint clog the paper all up and keep changing pieces of paper. I sand this whole boat with one sheet. One sheet. And look at it, perfectly clean. So paints that sand easily save you a lot of money in sandpaper. So I'm pretty happy about this. Like I say, I'm sanding along the waterline, making sure that I sand where the tape line was because it just makes the taping easier and it makes the second coat of paint come out much, much nicer. Now you can just start seeing the primer appear. Now I don't mind going around and looking at the rest of the boat. If you look at it straight on, well, it looks perfect. But if you look at it like on an angle, you can see places that might need to have a little bit more sanding done. And that is basically it. After I've taped this side off, this side will be ready to paint.